Happy Wednesday night, everybody. Welcome to Deep in the Plus. I'm your host, Rob Whiteside. And thank you guys, as always, for being with us. We appreciate you. If you have not already, please subscribe to WDWNT TV and also give us a thumbs up as it helps people to find us. And tonight we're going to be talking about Muppet Treasure Island. So I put out calls for movies all the time, and sometimes I get unsolicited requests. And this one came from Shannon. How are you?
I've got cabin fever.
Me too. Thank you for being here and for choosing this. This was very unexpected. I can tell you, I think I was actually at Disney when this text came through to me, and you were like, "Hey, have we done Muppet Treasure Island yet?" And I said no, and you're like, "Book it, let's do this." And I was just kind of like, "Okay." And we had just done the Muppets Most Wanted for the anniversary of that movie, and so I was like, let's spread it out a little bit. But tell me, what does this movie mean to you that you were like, I want to do this one?
This may be a false memory, but I believe this was the first movie I saw in theaters as a kid, and I loved it. I think if you've seen A Muppet Christmas Carol, that's also, or The Muppet Christmas Carol, that's one of my favorite Muppet movies. This one is very similar, and it just brings you back to those early 90s feels. So childhood nostalgia all wrapped in one.
Okay. Well, I can't wait to the end to see if it did actually stand the test of time for you, or if it was just a childhood fever dream. But you know what? You're right. This was after Jim Henson, and these movies were very different. Both of these were the same. They were similar. Muppet Christmas Carol and Muppet Treasure Island were very similar in the fact that they're retelling of classic stories. One thing I read in looking up for this movie is that there was actually something else up for grabs at the same time as Muppet Treasure Island. They were trying to decide between two. Do you know what the other movie was? The other story, the other
No.
classic story? King Arthur.
Oh,
Now I
well,
kind of want
I'm
that.
happy they chose Treasure Island. No, I like Treasure Island.
Oh, you don't love King Arthur? Okay, all right. Sorry. Ooh,
I'm
awkward.
always Team Pirates. Hello.
Okay, all right. So I thought that would have been something neat. But this was sort of a different generation. This was Brian Henson, and they were putting this stuff together. And actually, Disney had first right of refusal on this, and they went ahead and scooped it up and did Muppet Treasure Island. So this is a retelling of the Robert Louis Stevenson classic story. There is a Disney Treasure Island. I'm going to be honest with you. I'm not sure I've seen the Disney
I don't
Treasure
think I
Island
have.
movie. I've sure seen Disney Treasure Planet. I've seen that one. Uh, so have I assume you've seen Treasure Planet, right?
I don't think I have, honestly. Is that bad?
What? How could you not? Oh, in chat, Dawn is pirates better than knights. Okay, I,
Yeah, Team
okay,
Pirates.
okay. Yeah, I mean, there's not the Pirates of the Caribbean. There's not like a knight equivalent of that, is there? I don't think. So yeah, obviously it was a big deal. But this one is a retelling of that story, and again, I'm comparing a lot of it to Treasure Planet when I'm doing it. We did a review on Treasure Planet. You can check it out. Katie and I did that one. But it was one of those movies that, from an animated standpoint, didn't do too well at the box office, and if anything needs a reboot, I think it could be that. But there's been so many tellings of Treasure Island over the years. When it comes to the Muppet Christmas Carol, hands down, I feel like we all agree. Everybody who's here with us tonight, I'm looking at the chat, everybody is here, and Shannon, I think you'd agree, best version of A Christmas Carol.
100%. There's no
Yeah.
comparison. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, the Nutcracker and Christmas Carol are stories that are told every year by everyone from, Hollywood to Barbie. And so uh, to be able to see one and go, yep, that's the standout one. It's better than the Jim Carrey one, which is a little creepy. That's got the Uncanny Valley thing happening with it. But yeah, Muppet Treasure Island is the follow up to that. But the other thing that these two and I think that was 92 and this was 96. So the other thing that they have in
Hmm.
common, other than that, is that they are both very much leave the Muppet tradition of cameos. Like there's not a
Yeah.
ton of cameos in this one. And to me, that grew up with like the Muppet movie and the Great Muppet Caper and the Muppets Take Manhattan and Muppets from Space, seeing no cameos, it feels like there's a piece missing. But for you, if you grew up on this, do you think the cameos seem cheesy?
Do you know who Tim Curry is? Do you need
Yeah,
cameos with Tim Curry? I mean, I
yes,
feel like he makes up
he's
for it.
Pennywise.
No, I mean, I in doing research about this movie, I learned that Tim Curry was very much a fan of the Muppets and was so excited to do this role. And I feel like his excitement was really shining through and in his portrayal as Long John Silver. So I think he nailed it, and I think that makes up for any kind of misses in terms of the Muppet canon.
Okay. Well, I mean, again, Muppets are known for the slapstick breaking the fourth wall. The cameos are part of that, I feel like. So it would have probably seemed a little weird if like a sea monster came up and it was, I don't know, Robin Williams. But when I watch the Muppets, and then the Muppets Most Wanted that came out more recently, the Jason Segel one, and then the other one, they have the hallmark, kind of like Michael Caine. They've got like the star or stars in those
Mm-hmm.
movies, but they don't have really. Those have the cameos. These don't. And again, that's just something I noticed when I'm watching this movie. So when
I
this opens
do.
up, go ahead, talk to me.
No, I do like how they really tried to fit every Muppet into this movie, and they even make a joke because they had a hard time, I guess, fitting the Swedish Chef in, and they're like, "This is the only way we could fit him in the movie and break the fourth wall there." So I was excited watching it back, and even if they had really small roles like Dr. Bunsen Honeydew and Beaker, they were in there in some form. So I like that they tried to sneak everyone in.
As you mentioned the Swedish Chef, and I do, we do see that gag where they're like, we had to fit him in somehow. He would have made a perfect Long John Silver. I mean, or at least maybe his like assistant in the kitchen. That seems like
Sure.
he's in a galley. It's right there. He could have totally been his assistant in the kitchen instead of Polly, his wisecracking talking
Lobster.
lobster that sits on his shoulder, which we'll
Yeah.
talk about, I'm sure, in a minute. So when this, what I was going to say before was when this opens, there's a song, and the people who wrote these songs, we'll talk about them in a little bit, but they're not to me famous. Paul Williams wrote the music to the Muppet Christmas Carol, but he also wrote the music to the original Muppet movie, and so he had a history. And I think he's kind of like was their John Williams when it came to writing songs. So I want you to think about if these songs stood out to you because I have an opinion on that myself. But when it opens up with them and a pirate song, almost like I guess a sea shanty of sorts, but it's really dark. Like, I mean, it's talking about like blood and death and all this kind of stuff. And I mean, again, I know it's a pirate movie, but it's also a Muppet movie. And so, we get to hear this little song. It's not as warm and fuzzy as A Christmas Carol, but, the Shiver Me Timbers, I think, is what the name of the song is, right?
Yeah, but didn't Hans Zimmer play a role in this movie too?
The music, the score. Yeah,
Just
the
the
score.
score, yeah. And I
Yeah,
thought the
not the
score was
songs.
great. But yeah, you're right. It does start out a little dark, and there is, maybe you'll get to this, but someone does die in the movie, and there's this, running joke that it's the first time someone died in a Muppet movie, and they're like, oh, we're in a room with a dead person. So yeah, it is a little on the edge, I think, for children or for small children. But I was a child when I saw it, and I was still able to appreciate it. So I think it works.
Because it's the Muppets. I mean, obviously, duh. Like
Exactly.
you're gonna get excited. And when it first opens up, there's not a lot of Muppets. It's more these pirates who are pulling this treasure out. But there's a little, the animals are Muppets, and these skeletons are Muppets. And so basically, it's Flint, and it's the same as Treasure Island and Treasure Planet. Flint is this pirate, and he has all of this treasure, and he goes to bury it, and then he kills everybody. Again, it's a family movie. He kills everybody, and then
Yeah.
once they've buried the treasure, and then he keeps it for himself. So, again, it's a
Scoundrel.
nice little movie for everybody. Billy Connolly is the first like famous person we see in this one, and he plays Billy Bones, right? Um,
Yep.
and he's telling the story, and apparently he's told this story 900 times to the point where no one really pays attention to him. But he's the dad in Brave.
Yes, I saw that, and it surprised me because when I watched this, I thought this was pretty bad acting on his part,
Oh,
which is, yeah, I did, I did. I thought it was bad. It was uncomfortable to watch some of the scenes because I'm like, is this bad acting intentional? Is it part of his character being this drunk who tells the story 20 times? But he has done other things, so I guess his career's okay.
I don't like this.
I don't like this.
yeah, that was you. So he basically is telling the story of Flint, and then we cut to this tavern, and in this tavern is where we meet Gonzo and Rizzo. And here's an interesting thing that I read as well, is that apparently, and it feels very right there like Christmas Carol.
Hmm.
Which, by the way, the two of them
Yeah.
together in Christmas Carol is what makes that. Light the lamp, not the rat is my favorite line. I say it for no reason 24/7, 365. Um, but originally, they wanted Gonzo and Rizzo to be Jim Hawkins. You read that too.
Yeah.
Jim
Yeah.
and Hawkins.
Yep.
That would have been kind of
No.
cool. Yeah. No?
I like them playing themselves. I do. I like Gonzo and Rizzo playing Gonzo and Rizzo. I think it works as a shtick.
Okay, so that's another thing too. Is in this one, the Muppets, except for the two of them, the Muppets play other characters just
Yeah.
like in a Muppet Christmas Carol, which is again very similar between these two, but very different from every other Muppet movie that's out there, except for Muppet Wizard of Oz, which cannot be found for multiple reasons. Because that was kind of like the third movie is Muppets Wizard of Oz. Is you had Christmas Carol and Treasure Island and Wizard of Oz, and they were all pretending to be or they were playing somebody else. They were like Hollywood actors, Fozzie Bear, Fezziwig, Fozziewig, whatever. And so in this one, that's again another thing that's sort of special to this series is that they are actors. Kermit the Frog is Captain Smollett.
Hmm.
Miss Piggy is Benjamina.
Yep.
And yeah, so that I think is interesting. Also, this is where I get confused too. Is like the woman who runs, and also by the way, I was hoping for another light the lamp, not the rat joke here, but apparently we didn't go there. The woman who runs the inn is not Jim's mom in this one, but in Treasure Planet she is. So I don't really know, and maybe somebody in the chat knows. I don't really know like what's the lore there. If the innkeeper is not really having anything to do with Jim, or if she's actually his mom. Because in Treasure Planet, it probably makes it a lot easier to say it's his mom. Here, it's this woman who doesn't really do well with him. She just puts up with him, but then she saves him and helps them escape
Yeah.
after all that. So there's a lot of funny stuff that happens. There's a lot of gags in these that I didn't remember, and I appreciate them. I mean, that's one of the reasons we love the Muppets, right? The little gags, like Jimmy Jim, Jimmy Jim, Jim Jim Jim. No, I'm not Jimmy Jim, Jimmy Jim, Jim Jim Jim. He's Jimmy Jim, Jimmy Jim, Jim Jim Jim. Also, Gonzo breaks out a "to boldly go where no one has gone before" line.
It's so good.
Yeah, but you and I were talking earlier, which is like the best line from this one is the line where they find out about the 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 lobster on John's shoulder, and he says something about, oh, you don't usually see a talking lobster, you see a talking parrot. And they're like, talking parrot, what an imagination. First pirates, now talking parrots. What's next? A singing dancing mouse with his own amusement park. Gotta
Yes.
love it when they pander to Disney.
Pander to Disney before its time, right? Like, people who love that kind of humor and these diehard Disney park fans. Or, like, I feel like to say that in '96 was kind of out there. And there was a line in the movie that hinted to figment of your imagination, and I don't think that was coincidental. Gonzo says it twice, so
Okay.
that's why I got figment
What did you say
somewhere.
about Figment?
No, you can't see it. I had figment right out of view, but you can't see it.
So Billy Connolly and Tim Curry are kind of the only big stars in this. I mean, granted, other than Kermit and Miss Piggy
Well,
and Fozzie,
yeah, taken
yes.
away from the Muppets. Ouch.
I'm just saying,
But
it's
yes.
again like looking at Muppets Most Wanted. You had Ty Burrell and Tina Fey and Ricky Gervais, plus all the cameos. So yeah, and I guess in this one, sort of again like the Muppet Christmas Carol, where it's Michael Caine, Tim Curry kind of plays that role, and really,
Yeah.
almost Billy Connolly is almost just a cameo if you think about it, because of how
Yeah.
soon into it he dies. So a weird stranger comes to the door, gives him a black dot, which is apparently the mark of death, and then Billy ends up dying, giving his treasure map to Jim, and he and his two bestest friends in the whole wide world, Gonzo and Rizzo, abscond with it out to find somebody to finance a ship that will then take them to search for this treasure. So when they get to the part where we're like, who's the captain? And again, I've seen this before. I know it's going to be Kermit. I know that. But they play it up. Sam is the first mate, and he's on there. He's playing Mr. Arrow. He's like, hey, the captain's coming, and he doesn't take any guff, and he's mean, and he's mad, and you got to be careful. And then all of a sudden, like this carriage comes tearing through town, and then, we get the reveal that it's our boy Kermit. And that's actually still a funny bit, I feel like. And it almost feels like the superstar moment in the whole thing.
Yeah, and I think it's unexpected. Like I mean, you were expecting it. I personally wasn't. I had forgotten that Kermit was the captain when I rewatched it, and I was also expecting a person, a human, a non-Muppet. And when Kermit comes out, it's a great surprise. Now, one thing that does bother me is that Sam Eagle, or Mr. Arrow in this movie, he's a little gullible, and that kind of bothers me because I always feel like Sam Eagle is this no-nonsense, very book smart Muppet, but he's a little foolish in this movie. No,
I feel like he always is.
Is
I
he?
feel like he's always a
I
little
don't.
bit like that. Yes.
Uh,
Mr. Mickey Mouse. Dun, 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 dun. Hello,
yeah,
welcome
I
to my
guess you're
park.
right.
He falls for it. It's Gonzo, and he
He
falls
seemed
for it, right?
extra foolish in this movie, I guess.
Well, I mean, again, it was an acting choice on behalf of Sam the Eagle. But here's the bit where this the coachman kicks open the door, comes out, and then it makes it look like he's the evil captain, and everybody's like, "Oh no!" And then he steps aside, and there's your boy. There he is.
Yeah, there he is.
Hi
Look
ho,
at him.
Kermit the Frog.
That outfit.
Yeah.
So good.
Do you ever, when you're watching these things, wonder what the setup is, when the actor is where they are and where the puppeteer is? I mean, I know they're the Muppets,
Yeah.
suspension of disbelief, but I always wonder where are the people? Especially there's the bit where Sam is rowing the boat, and I'm like, they're not underneath it. I guess that's done by remote control, but I'd like to think that he's actually rowing that boat.
Yeah, and I think Tim Curry had mentioned this in an interview too, where he was saying how it was kind of intimidating in a way to do a production with Muppets, because Muppets can sometimes be more powerful or impactful than a person or an animal in terms of the entertainment factor, and it was distracting at some points where he was kind of forgetting or couldn't focus on his own role. So I would imagine that is difficult to do, but maybe that's why we saw what's his name, Billy Bones, struggle in his acting a little bit, but Long John Silver absolutely nailed it and powered through.
Jake dropped the thing in the chat where they said maybe he gets hopping mad, which is from the movie, but
Because
yeah.
he has one leg.
Hopping, okay. Anyway, yeah, but so here's another thing that I kind of love that's happening in this movie, and it happens throughout the entire movie, is that because he's afraid he's not going to get paid necessarily, Rizzo sets up a separate like cruise for rats. And what I
Yeah.
love about this is that they are that they're scattered throughout here, but their story is completely separate, which is how things would be in reality, right? I mean, the rats won't care what the humans are doing. They're just like doing their own thing, right? So I think that that actually lines up pretty well. That there's this like they think they're on a cruise, they're bringing their beach umbrellas, and just hanging out. And every time we see them and there's like peril, we like pan over and see how the rats are just kind of like having a good time, which again feels like commentary to me because I feel like that's what would happen with rats. Am I digging too deep here?
No, and there was a lot of rat humor. I actually really appreciated when Gonzo and Rizzo were tied up, and Polly was trying to get him to give up the secret, and Gonzo says, "Never, I'll never give it up." And Rizzo's like, "Well, maybe, like maybe I will." Like as in, you're a rat, you're a dirty rat, and I appreciate they did that joke twice in the movie, and I love that there was a second. It wasn't even really a storyline, but the second story, I guess, happening at the same time, and it really added to the movie. I thought it was really cute that they made it seem like a human cruise.
Like the B side, the B track, the B
Yes.
story. Um, so let's step back a second. Let's talk about the music. We talked about Hans Zimmer is the one who actually
Hmm.
did the instrumental music for this. So
Hmm.
so like Cabin Fever, that little bit, that's Hans Zimmer. The Boom Shakalaka, that's Hans Zimmer. Um, and then like Land Ho and a couple of these others are Hans Zimmer too. But the people who wrote the music are apparently known for having written other things. Um, and but nothing that I don't think there's too much that I had actually heard of. One of them has actually passed away, and it was a like a male and female um, co-writers on this one, and Barry Mann and Cynthia Wheel. Um, so, but Barry Mann is actually 85 years old. Wrote a lot of Broadway and music for like doo-wop and things like that. So very kind of cool. But also we have uh, Ziggy Marley is at the very end of this one. Did you listen to the Ziggy Marley song at the end?
When the credits are rolling,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, and that I felt like tied in. I guess the ending is the rats kind of living their vacation life, so it felt very appropriate to have that there at the end.
But there a couple of them, like I said, like the Boom Shakalaka with the boars on the island. That was just more like a drum thing. It reminded me of Tarzan and the Trash in the Camp song from Bada Doop Bada Doop. But the Boom Shakalaka, that was actually I thought a pretty neat one. But like the one Love Lettuce here, when Piggy and Kermit are hanging
Yes.
upside down, I know that song. Why do I know that song? It's not from this, I don't think.
I was thinking the same thing. It sounded really familiar, but then I felt like it sounded very familiar to a song in the Muppet Christmas Carol. I
Uh,
can't think of how it goes, but
Well, there's a radio
there's a
version of
song
this
like that.
that they play at the end, performed by John Barry and Helen Darling. That's Love Lettuce here. But again, I mean, it that one I think is a good one. But but the rest of it, like the Shiver
The
My
Sailing
Timbers
for
one,
Adventure. So you had mentioned earlier on about there's something that you say your whole life, right? Like light the lamp, not the rat.
right?
And I think that's part of what makes this, what I love about this movie and what makes it great is that there are these things in my life that no matter how old I get, I say these things without even realizing where they're from. And Sailing for Adventure, that's a song that I like sing in my head whenever I'm on a boat or by the water. And I don't even think about the fact that it's from this movie, but it is. I think I love that song. I think it's great.
Yeah, Jake pointed out in the chat that the one that that Tim Curry sings, the professional pirate, where it's almost like
Yeah.
a LinkedIn advertisement for why you should be a pirate.
Yeah,
Uh,
that was really good.
yeah, and Don pointed out it's again kind of breaking the fourth wall where Tim Curry said this is my only song, although he does sing along in a couple of the others. So um, yeah, I don't know. I just the music is not. I don't carry this one away with me, and maybe it's because in '96, like I wasn't all about this like you were. But
Mm.
so these songs do mean something to you, is what you're saying.
Yeah, I don't think the entire movie is filled with great songs, but I think there are some hits in there that have stuck with me for a very long time.
I still think for sure that Love Lettuce here is one that I will probably recognize again somewhere sometime and go, oh yeah, that's the one, because I don't think for $1 million I would have been able to tell you that it came from Muppet Treasure Island, honestly. So
And I love that scene when that song is playing because it's like Kermit and Miss Piggy were kind of in this peril, life or death situation, and then they go to Tim Curry and he's in the treasure room, and it's like beautiful and poetic. I just love that how they pan back and forth to them during this love song, like Tim or Long John Silver's in love with his treasure.
you know what I will say about this movie is that I feel like from a set standpoint and like a quality standpoint, I feel like it's a pretty strong movie. Like the this set right here with the in the captain's quarters, like that's a beautiful scene right there. Like with that
Mm-hmm.
sunset and I mean that it looks like they spent a couple bucks making this happen. So, you know, the ship itself looks amazing. And then they get to there are several scenes on the island. So I think from a production value standpoint, this one seems like they kind of went out of their way to make sure that they were doing a quality piece here.
Yeah, and shout out to Fozzie and Mr. Bimbo because I love how he's just a nut in this movie and has an imaginary friend or whatever you want to call it in his finger named Mr. Bimbo.
I think they did a really good job with Fozzie playing him just enough.
Yeah,
Like,
agreed.
I'm going to go ahead and say that for almost all of the Muppets in this one. Sometimes there's too much Miss Piggy for me. Just putting that out there. Um,
Oh,
and then
fighting
and
words.
sometimes I think, but I think balance wise, like you don't have too much of Kermit. You don't have him being too preachy or
Hmm.
anything like that, but he's right there when he needs to be. Same thing with like Gonzo and Rizzo. The bit where they stretch Gonzo out, you were talking about earlier, the torture scene is so Gonzo that it's really really well done. And then Sam,
Yeah.
there's more Sam than you normally see, and that's fine. Like you said, like he's a little bit off in this one, but I think that's probably why you thought he was maybe a little more gullible, as we see him more. It's not just him popping
Sure.
out saying it's a glorious 3 hour finale, you got a minute and a half. It's not that kind of a thing. um, so I think that there's a good balance, but that includes Fozzie. One of the bits that Fozzie does is when they're talking about um, Long John Silver wants them to have a toast in this fine brandy that's like
Yeah.
eons old, and so every time he says don't drink it, and then Fozzie throws it out the
He
window,
talks with it.
and then he
Yes.
decides to like put it back in the pour some more in there. Yep. It's like, yep, let me pour some more. Oh no, and let me throw this out here, and then the rats pop up and they're like, hey, you're taking the shellac off of the shuffleboard. Um, but it's like that's funny, and the Mr. Bimbo thing.
Oh,
It
not a
was all
fan.
it was all right. It was all right. Um, but Tim Curry. Let's talk about Tim Curry for a second, because again, he's kind of
What?
I mean, he is the star. He is the star. What
Yep.
would you not like Tim Curry in? I mean, basically, like he was the father on what was the Wild Thornberries. I think he did an amazing job with
Yes.
that. He was in Rocky Horror Picture Show, obviously. He was in It, the first one, the
Clue.
first incarnation. Oh, Clue is a butler. Oh yeah. Oh my gosh, so good.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
good.
So I don't know that this is his best role, but I think he's good in it for
No.
sure.
Yeah,
Um,
and I don't think anyone in a Muppet movie it's going to be their best role, right? But I think this for him was a fun project. Like I mentioned before, he loved the Muppets and he was excited to do this role. So I don't think he went into this wanting to win an Oscar or expecting to win an Oscar, but
No.
it was great. No, I don't think so.
Um, is there ever enough Electric Mayhem Band? I'm very sad that they canceled the show, by the way. But it was great to see them in here, and
Yeah.
uh, you keep seeing them pop up, and it's before they had the extra member, and I forget his name now, but it was the original gang, and that was kind of cool. But I love again this scene where they kind of intertwine and they walk through, and you see all the stuff the rats are doing, and yet then you have this poignant moment where Long John Silver takes young Jim under his wing and is having this big talk with him. And the problem is, I already know John's bad.
Yeah.
So, like, I wonder to myself if I didn't know John was bad already, like if I didn't know that from the story that Long John Silver not only makes a great chicken plank, but also is, no, nobody, chicken planks? Long John Silver's? Okay, it's a restaurant. Yeah. I don't know. It's a thing. Anyway, if I didn't know that already, I would say that I wonder if I would know that he was bad news.
Not at that point. I felt like that was a moment where he seemed to really care about him and like you said, wanting to take him under his wing. So you do get that feeling in your stomach where you're like, ooh, is this a trap? I don't know. But I think he plays it off well. And yeah, I like it.
So here's the thing. We have a super chat, Shannon, and I don't, because we have this on Park Center, I don't have the audio here. I don't have the audio. I'm sorry.
Oh, no. Well,
I
then
don't.
there's no dance. Sorry.
There's no dance. I'm sorry. Christine says cabin fever. Oh, okay. You
My
can do a little
sister.
dance. Yeah.
She did that on purpose.
Oh, she did because she wanted you to dance.
Yeah.
Sorry. I mean, unfortunately, I don't have that music. Bravo.
Yikes.
Bravo.
Yikes.
I mean,
We lost the whole crowd. Everyone just dropped it.
it's fine. Thank you, Shannon's sister, for the super chat. We appreciate it,
Thanks,
and next time I'm gonna have to have that ready to go so that
No, that's a one and done. Oh.
Anyway, wow, that's a long, yeah. Anyway, so let's get back to this. Actually, I want to say thank you to everybody who's been watching. We appreciate you guys hanging out with us on Deep in the Plus. We'll talk at the end about like what's coming up on Deep in the Plus, so thank you for that. Shannon, because you wanted this movie, I came up with some trivia because I knew you would want to play trivia, right? This is fun for you.
No.
This is your movie. So I came up with some trivia. Again, don't forget to give us a thumbs up. We appreciate it. You ready for some trivia? It might be super easy
nervous.
for you. No. So, here's an easy one. What's the name of the ship?
Oh, I know it.
Well, I was
I know
hoping
it.
you would.
Hispaniola.
There you go. See how
Yeah.
easy that's gonna be. When Mullet left Benjamina at the altar, where was he sailing off to?
Honestly, I wasn't paying attention. Not part.
Oh,
When I rewatched it, I got a little distracted. I don't know.
no
Sorry.
guesses. No guesses.
No guesses.
Oh,
Fountain of Youth.
no. Dawn knew it was the Hispaniola. I was waiting in the chat to see if anybody
No one
else
knows the
would.
island or where they're going.
Yeah, well, Zanzibar, because they talk about it a bunch. They talk about Zanzibar
yes,
a lot.
Okay.
So it was Zanzibar. He said he was on she was like, you left me at the altar. He says I was on a ship to Zanzibar. And then, of course, they made two references at the beginning and at the end to Zanzibarians.
Yes, they did.
How old was Jim when his dad died? It was a very heartwarming moment. It's between John and Jim. And they're sharing, they're bearing their souls. I don't believe John's story was true. I feel like he kind of made that up to be, to gain favor with Jim. But Jim was very clear on how old he was when his dad died.
6.
That is a very good guess, but Dawn in the chat has it. She's on a roll.
7.
It is 7. Yes, 7.
Yeah, 7.
That is 7.
Should have known that. Dang.
I know you should have known that. In the very beginning, they tell the story of Flint and how he brought all of his men onto the island, and they said only Flint left the island. But they say, but how many people came ashore that day?
15.
Whoa! Boom! What? How do you know that?
Got him.
How do you know that one?
I remember the line.
Wow, that's impressive. That's impressive. I got 2 more for you.
Okay.
When they're looking for the map, Billy Bones says, "Hey, the map is in my suitcase. Go find the map." They're flipping through the suitcase and they're throwing things around. Gonzo pulls out a book.
Oh,
What's the book?
I don't know. I didn't see it.
Diplomacy by Henry Kissinger. Now, that may be an important thing. I don't know. It probably is. My education stems solely in garbage information about pop culture, so I don't really know if it was a big deal book. But anyway, yeah, he pulls that out. This is the last one, and I think this should be easy, but it also could be hard. I talked about Rizzo starting his little pirate voyage, right? He tells them to make the checks out to his company. What is the name of his company?
Oh no.
Oh, I thought that would be so fun. I love that his slogan is "We put the rat in pirate."
In pirate, I know.
And then he says, "Good to see you, Mr. Plagueman." So many little bits are so good, but what was the name of his tour company, Shannon?
Oh my gosh, I don't know.
For the lifetime supply of donuts and the trip to Jamaica, what was the name of his company?
Help me out, chat.
No.
Help me out, chat. I don't know. No one's helping me.
Rat Tours Unlimited.
Dang.
Make the checks out to Rat Tours Unlimited. Now, the fun part is you'll never forget it. Rat Tours Unlimited. There you go. All right. Well, thank you for playing that. I appreciate it. I did consider the possibility of giving you a B choice, but it would have been way too much effort on my part to put it together. So, anyway, I appreciate you sticking with that one. So here's the thing that I noticed again. I've watched this movie. I probably have seen it once before, maybe twice, because, again, this was not my era of Muppet. But when I'm watching it, I kept thinking to myself, I don't remember where we run into Piggy again. I don't remember in it. Or did you find yourself thinking that too? Where was Piggy in this? Or did you remember?
Yeah, no, I didn't remember the second half of the movie pretty much at all. So.
Why do you think that is? That's interesting. Why do you think you didn't remember the second half of the movie? Is this something they played to put you to sleep at night when you were a kid?
Yeah, because I was a kid and I had no attention span. But I know I had the VHS and my sister and I watched it religiously, so. It's been 2 decades, Rob. Give me a break.
I'm just asking. You were the one who, again, it took me completely by surprise because normally you're like, yeah, I'll do this review, I'll do that review, but this is where you were like, hey, Muppet Treasure Island, we're doing it, let's go. And so I was like, okay.
Because it was a staple. It was just, it's like the Muppet Christmas Carol, where they're so unique. I think they're unique anyway, and again, very nostalgic. So I wanted to talk about it, and I really wanted a reason to watch it again.
There was a movie that I watched that almost seems like it's not a real movie, and I remember seeing it. It was a 1982 movie, and I remember seeing it as a kid. And if I show you this cover, it's going to seem like it's some sort of an adult film, and it's not.
Oh, no.
But it was Christopher Atkins, who played in a movie called The Blue Lagoon with Brooke Shields, and Christy McNichol, who was a thing at the time. and it was called The Pirate Movie. Doesn't this look like an extremely inappropriate movie? But it was like it was sort of like a goof or a parody movie about pirates. And so like somewhere deep in the recesses of my mind, I couldn't tell you a thing about this movie, and I remember watching it multiple times because it was on like, you know, HBO, and it was free, and it would always come up or whatever. But I don't remember anything about it, but I do get vibes about this movie when I watch pirate movies. I don't know why. I don't know why. Anyway, I don't know if anybody else in the chat ever has seen that, or if I'm the only one who has ever seen the pirate movie. So anyway, back to Piggy. I wasn't expecting. I didn't. I mean, he has a picture of her, and it's really more of a drawing of her, and so you know we know about Benjamina, but we don't really know anything about her specifically. They get to the island, and when they get to the island, he's going there to save Jim, which he had this great plan, and then Jim messes it up. The kid messed it up, where he fell for Long John Silver's ruse about his you know his crutch. So Long John Silver has the map. He and his men are headed to the land, and Kermit's or Mullet's idea was, let's just let him go. We'll leave him there for a year and come back for them. Just leave him. Let's be fine. And then they kidnap Jim, and now they have to go rescue Jim. And they go to do that. And when they get to the island, they get separated from everybody else, and Gonzo and Rizzo and Kermit are taken prisoner by these boars, which is great. It's a great way to like tie in pigs. Like the one dude who looks like he's from Pigs in Space is banging the big gong. Like it's a thing. This is the Boom Shakalaka, which I thought was very funny, and but there was little to no way that as this procession is coming up that it wasn't going to be Piggy, right? I mean, didn't you kind of know that? It's like it's this whole group of pigs, this whole like warrior pig thing, and this like elephant coming up with somebody hidden above. You knew it was Piggy, right?
And it's over the top, right? Yeah.
Right.
Very over the top.
And then of course when she appears, the first thing she does is she speaks French, because you know that's what Piggy does. One of the other things that I thought was interesting, that as I was reading up on this movie, is that Frank Oz, who famously does many of these characters like Miss Piggy, he and Jim were like the majority of all characters. If Jim was Beaker, he was Honeydew, and and so on and so forth. So, obviously Steve Whitmire took over for Jim Henson when he passed away, and then there's been a replacement there. But when you go and you look at Frank Oz, he was Fozzie and Miss Piggy, but he wasn't available during the shooting of this movie. And so Kevin Clash, who was the Muppeteer behind Elmo and voice, did all the Muppeteering of Frank's characters, and then Frank dubbed the voice in later. So Frank Oz does do the voices, he just didn't do any of the characters. So that distracted me while I was watching this, and I see Miss Piggy. I'm like, okay, that's not Frank down there. I don't know why. It just seemed weird that it's Kevin and not Frank down there, because again, it's his voice. It's seamless. We buy into it, but again, it's just another one of those interesting things to say. The voice is so important. We saw that with the genie in the Return of Jafar movie, that it wasn't Robin Williams. It was Hank Azaria. No, not Hank Azaria. Why am I drawing a blank? The guy who plays Homer Simpson. Dan Castellaneta. Anyway, so he does the voice of the genie, but it's like that shows you how important the voice is, because the animation, it's whatever. Like the animation for Return of Jafar is not the quality that we saw in the Aladdin movie, but it's the voice that makes the difference. Here, it's true. The puppeteering, I buy into it. I mean, Kevin Clash. Yeah. I never would have known that it wasn't Frank Oz if I hadn't looked that up. And also he's listed in the credits as and Frank Oz, which could be a completely different reason. But, I don't know that he does as much anymore in actual puppeteering, but he was also Yoda, and, a big deal. So we meet Miss Piggy here for the first time, and she's of course angry. She always is the first time she sees Kermit. That's in formula. That's on brand. And then we hear from Benjamina that at some point that not only was she there hooking up with Flint, but apparently she had hooked up with Long John Silver as well. And there's almost this twinge of something dirty when she says Long John Silver. Did you catch that?
I don't know about that.
Okay, all right.
I don't tend to think that way, Rob.
Okay, I don't either. I just think so, but it made it seem like Piggy's stepping out a little, which is seems a little bit not her character for normal. But then
But I love, you know what I love with Kermit when he has the tattoo, when his shirt kind of opens up a little, and he's got that scandalous tattoo of Benjamina right in the middle of his chest. I thought
which
that
takes
was
up
precious.
so much space on his little body
does.
that that's part of what makes it hilarious.
Yeah.
You know, let's get back to Long John Silver and his arc. Is that he? And this is true in Treasure Planet. It's also true, I assume, in the regular story. But in Treasure Planet, there's this same thing where he's the bad guy. He has conned Jim the entire time, but he still seems to have an affection for Jim. And so when his crew is like, "Hey, the treasure isn't here. We're gonna mutiny against you," which I don't know if you can do. I guess he was the captain technically at that point. But they kind of turn on him, and when they do, he tells Jim to run. He's like, I did care about you. That was the only thing I wasn't ever lying about. So, and then at the end, we see that again when Jim can turn him in, but he decides not to. So I think that like, we already love Tim Curry, but do we love Long John Silver? Like, do we have a soft spot for the villain in this one?
Yeah, definitely. Definitely. I appreciated that. I liked that he had this soft spot. It got a little tense there towards the end, but I think they both gave each other some slack, and I thought that was a nice way. And then you come to find, and maybe a spoiler alert, but Long John Silver's boat sinks, and the rats end up getting the treasure at the end of the bottom of the sea. So I liked it.
Well, yeah, and that's, again, I want to see the entire, like, behind the scenes now of, like, was Tim Curry, like, literally, I don't know, like 8 inches in water there, or was he actually was he actually in a lake and all that kind of stuff? The Swedish Chef, I was flipping through, the Swedish Chef bit is just over the top. I don't know. The part where, like, we meet up with him and he's cooking or whatever, and he's got the pig nose on, like, and you can literally see, like, the strings from the pig nose, like, so funny, the way that works. Also, another, like, little inside bit they did was when right before the scene with Piggy and Kermit, where she's kind of telling them where she's been and how she got to this island, there's a tour of rats, and they're like, this is the actual jungle scene from the movie Muppet Treasure Island. Again, so Muppet. That's so meta, so Muppet when they do stuff like that. So
yeah, I feel like they were ahead of their time.
Yeah, I agree. But again, as just as a production, I feel like this one's okay. But some of the scenes like this really, I don't know, that felt really good. And again, when we see Gonzo come around the corner there and Rizzo, and they look like they're at about normal height, I gotta imagine that there's like a rigging underneath that, and that's where the puppeteers are. Because again, when I'm watching it, I totally buy it, 100% totally buy it. But then when I'm looking, like, digging deep into a movie like this, I wondered to myself, like, how is Sam rowing? Like, is that real water? Like, what's going on there?
I've never gone that deep. I just believe that Muppets are real because they are.
Yes. And it's another form of entertainment. I mean, we have computer-generated animation, we have hand-drawn animation, we have live action, and we have Muppets. And it's great that that's all part of the big, the Disney brand. But when we were at D23, Destination D23 in Orlando last November, Dave Goles was there, and he came in as Dr. Bunsen Honeydew, and it was amazing because you can see him.
Incredible.
He came in on a little like trike, but you know, Dr. Bunsen Honeydew's up here, and you're like just looking at Dr. Bunsen Honeydew. That's all you're doing. It was really well done the way that they put it together, but you just buy into it because there's so much personality in the Muppets, and it frustrates me that Disney doesn't do more with them.
Yeah, I agree. It is the personality that makes it believable, because I don't know if anyone's seen Frozen on Broadway, where they have those puppet characters. It's kind of like the Nemo show in Animal Kingdom. But I end up getting so distracted, I look at the people, and I don't like that because the puppets aren't that great, whereas the Muppets are humanized. So.
Well, and I just saw Lion King on the tour of Lion King, and it's the same thing. Like Julie Taymor kind of introduced that into theater. I believe was the version of like Timon and Pumbaa and Zazu, and them being the puppeteer being part of the costume. And so I feel like you buy into that a little bit more in The Lion King, but maybe not. I don't know. So like I said, when you know, it comes to this great like this blows between you know, Jim and the good guys and Long John Silver and the bad guys, and they go through all this fighting and swordplay and all that, and that's when Kermit takes off his or unbuttons his shirt a little bit and shows off his tattoo and his manliness. And again, I feel like there was a perfect amount of everybody. He wasn't the lone hero here, and he didn't do some grand gesture, but it was cool. Also, Miss Piggy kissed a lot of people too. So
she did.
Here's and then the close up of the tattoo.
It's also that Miss Piggy's outfit, I don't think, I mean, it worked, but it didn't at the same time. Like that animal print, it gave Flintstones vibes. And then the feather boa, I wasn't really getting it, but that's Miss Piggy, right? Gave
Flintstone vibes. Yeah, I guess so. So at the very end, Long John Silver figures out he's got the keys after they've captured them all and put him in the brig. He figures out he's got the keys, and he tries to make his escape. And of course, Jim has one last showdown with him, gets his compass back from his dad, and then Silver goes off into the mist, and Kermit and crew are right there to reassure him, and that's great. And it's like, yeah, you did the right thing. And then of course, Arrow tells him that was definitely a leaky boat that he went off on, so he's sinking there. Which again, I love the idea of Tim Curry pulling it off with a whole staff full of people watching, and him, you know, drastically or desperately bailing himself out. There was one. This movie is like an hour 41, and then there's like 7 minutes of credits between the regular credits and the who did the voice in Germany credits. I will say though that as I'm watching the credits and they drop the rope, the first thing I was thinking is it was going to pull up the credits, and it didn't.
That's what I thought too. Yeah.
Okay. All right. So it wasn't just me. Yeah, I thought that was going to be the thing. And did you watch all the way to the end and see the mid-credit scene? Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Just making sure that you saw the mid-credit scene. Yeah, where the tiki is telling jokes to Long John Silver, and he's eating a banana and just like hanging out, and and then it kind of like does the circle and goes away, and there it is. That's the end. It's So I do want to say that, like, again, like we say with the Muppets all the time, I wish there were more Muppets in the park. Yeah. I mean, Muppet Vision is always awesome. I can't ever get enough Muppet Vision. I go to see it almost every time, as opposed to like PhilharMagic maybe once every second or third time maybe. But you know, Muppets has to be one that I want to see, and I hope it never goes away. Again, one of Jim Henson's last projects, but at the same time, I'd like to see more Muppets.
Yep. I think they have an opportunity in that little area now that the Christmas shop is closed. You know, give us more Muppets. That gift shop never reopened, which is really sad. And
The Studio
yeah,
One.
we have opportunity. Yes. I mean, I
Well,
know
and
they use it for the special days, right?
yeah, they used it for back-to-back special days because they used it for
Yeah.
the 30th anniversary, and then they used it for or the 35th, and then they used it for May the 4th merchandise. So they used it back-to-back. But yeah, it would have been nice had they actually used it for, I don't know, open it up, because it was neat. It was cool. You would come dump out of Muppet Vision and right into a store that had Muppet merch. Why wouldn't you want to do that? Like, who
Yeah.
wouldn't want to do that and immediately buy some Muppet merch? I remember buying my wife a a Bean Bunny in that shop, and they used to sell Bean, and that's not one that you see very often. So,
Well, Muppet
um,
Babies is pretty popular too. I think my niece loved Muppet Babies when she was a baby. So I think there's definitely a lot of opportunity, especially with Disney Plus. Get more Muppets on Disney Plus, and then get that in the parks.
yeah.
We're all happy.
Jake was mentioning Muppet Mobile Lab. I never got to see it in person. The one that would kind
No,
of
I never
float
I
around
never did
Epcot.
either. Yeah. Yeah, no.
And I remember when we were talking on Park Center last year about the Muppets Brew Wing Lab that they were putting at the
Mm-hmm.
Odyssey, that people were
Loved
like,
it.
people thought there were going to be actual Muppets there, and it never crossed my mind that there would actually be Muppets in there. But
Oh no.
wouldn't that have been cool? I mean, they did it for that whole thing they did at Liberty Square. That was a neat little
Yeah.
show, the Great Moments in History. That was cool. And then the little Christmas show they did after COVID, where it was just like, we have the puppets, but we're not going to actually use the voice actors, so we'll just have them up in the windows doing stuff. I'll take it.
Yeah.
Like, again,
Yeah,
I
I will
want
too.
more Muppets. So,
I mean,
um,
how many pickle milkshakes do you think they sold just because it had to do with Muppets? Oh, I knew you'd have it. Yes, I love
I
it.
mean, it wasn't bad. It wasn't bad, but again, as anybody knows who watches Park Center, I have a thing for plastic containers and limited edition plastic containers, so I had to have that, even though it's probably got like a sticker or something on it to make it that. But yeah, I don't know. All right, so before we get to final thoughts, we talked about everything you wanted to talk about. Yeah, we talked about cast, we talked about the
Yeah.
music, we talked about all of the things. But before we get to final thoughts, I want to first say thank you to our WIGS members. We love our WIGS, the WDWNT Interglobe Society. If you have not already, you can check it out at patreon.com/WDWNT. Thank you guys so much for being part of the family. And then I do want to kind of give some programming notes here that we had Pixar's Inside Out is what Desi and I did last week. You're watching Muppet Treasure Island right now. Next week, Stephanie's coming on because Rookie of the Year is now available on Disney Plus. I don't know if it's because of the weird Hulu thing, but it's there. So we're going to do it. We're going to do Rookie of the Year, which we were going to do actually on opening day, but now we're doing that. June 5th, we're doing Star Wars Acolyte. And again, whether it's a fluke because of Hulu or not, We Bought a Zoo is going to be on, and Patrick and I are going to talk about We Bought a Zoo, because when you pull up Disney Plus, you can watch it on there. So tune in for all that, and then don't forget to watch last week's Park Center, and don't forget we'll be back again live this Sunday night from 9 p.m. to 10 p.m. Eastern for another episode of Park Center, talking about live. We're going to be live talking about Disney parks, and we'd love to have you hang out with us and just chill Sunday nights. It'll be fun. Thank you so much to everybody who's been in the chat. Love seeing you guys here. But now is the moment, Shannon. Now is the time that you've looked back on this nostalgic moment in your history with your sister and the video, the VHS, and then the half a movie you don't remember. But I need to know, now that you've sat with it again, we've talked about it, the big question is, Shannon, would you recommend this movie?
Yes, yes, absolutely. And I again, like I said, the Muppet Christmas Carol, I think, is a classic and a staple for Christmas time movie that I think a lot of people watch. And I'm sure that Muppet Treasure Island is probably not as popular. If you love the Muppet Christmas Carol, please give this a chance. Rewatching it as an adult, if I still laugh, if there are things that I understand as an adult that I know I would never have understood as a kid, I think that stands the test of time. And a lot of those 90s movies did that. Disney, Muppets, whatever, where you can appreciate it as a kid. There's a lot there to entertain you, but there are these innuendos and these little pieces here and there that you pick up on that you're like, wow, that went way over my head as a kid. Didn't even think about it, but as an adult, I think that's that's really funny. So, 10 out of 10 recommend.
10 out of 10. That's strong. 10 out of 10.
Oh, no.
No, I mean, I would say that, like, I would recommend this to anybody who hasn't seen it, that it's a fun watch. It's an hour 41, like I mentioned, and you can shave off 7 minutes for the credits. It's not my favorite Muppet movie, though. And to be honest, it's probably Muppets Take Manhattan, which isn't on Disney Plus. Great Muppet Caper, the original, the OG ones, the original Muppet movie. I do love the Jason Segel one, and of course, like I said, the Muppet Christmas Carol is my favorite version of Christmas Carol. This is probably my favorite version. It's a toss-up, honestly. Treasure Planet is a very good version of Treasure Island, so, you know, definitely check it out. I'd recommend that you watch it, but like I said, it's not my favorite of the Muppet movies, but it's a good one. As I'm looking at Disney Plus, the Muppet choices are less than I thought there were. So obviously Muppets from Space is not on here. That was a Sony picture that happened in the dark days after Jim passed, but before Disney bought into the Muppets. And then Muppets Take Manhattan is not on here, and neither is Muppets Wizard of Oz. So there are still Muppet things, and Muppets Tonight isn't on here. And I'm not seeing the Muppet Show, which is weird. So I don't know if something weird happened there or not. But we may still at some point do the Muppets, because we haven't done that one yet. We've done the Muppet movie, Muppets, Muppets Most Wanted, Christmas Carol, Great Muppet Caper, and now Treasure Island. So I don't really feel like doing Muppets now. And then, but the Muppets might be a good one to do. So, and again, let us know in the comments what you think. Which Muppet movie means the most to you? Which ones you remember? And Shannon, thank you so much for calling this one out and for talking about it tonight. I appreciate it. And
thanks for having me.
Thanks for everything. And we'll talk again on Park Center, and have to get you queued up for another Deep in the Plus. I know you have an idea of one that you'd like to do, so we'll see if we can make that make all your Deep in the Plus dreams come true. It'll be great.
Yay.
All right. Thank you guys. Have a great week. We'll see you Sunday night for Park Center, and have a good one. Take care.
Bye.